Starting a new chapter, a new letter, and just to get our bearings straight, as we like to do. So the letters in this part of Tanya are fundraising letters mainly, and the fundraising letters on behalf of the Yidden, the Jewish people that moved to Israel. What was the story? In 1777, a small or large delegation and group of Hasidic Jews, followers of the original Baal Shem Tov, and these now, the leaders of this group was Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, also known as Rabbi Mendel Haraducker. He was in the city of Vitebsk, and also Avram Kalisk, two great rabbis who led a whole group, and they had very difficult times in Israel. It was times of the Ottoman Empire, and they come there, and they set up shop first in Sfas, and they have to move to Tveria. It's very difficult. But the bottom line is the Alter Rebbe, starting from 1777, begins fundraising, sending letters, trying to send money to support this small group of Jewish people that are in Israel. And this is way before Zionism, way before all the modern organizations, just settling the land, the holy land of Israel, to live there in this holy land. There was nothing there. It was a very difficult time to live there. Talk about the 1700s, late 1700s. So the Alter Rebbe was working very hard. Now, who was supporting them? A bunch of poor Jewish people in Poland and in Russia. Talking about Jews in Liozna, Liadi, people that had nothing. They couldn't put bread on the table. They were being persecuted tremendously by the non-Jews, by the Russians. They had tremendous persecution from within the Jewish people, by the Masnagdim. Tremendous persecution. Very, very painful, difficult times. And they had nothing to eat, nothing to do, no parnasa. And the Alter Rebbe is sending them letters. We got to support the Jews in Israel. So you have to understand who he's writing these letters to. So in the beginning, there was a tremendous excitement, and everyone worked, and everyone tried, and everyone was sending money. You know how things work as time goes by. Things slow down. It wasn't the same excitement. It's like, whether it's starting a diet, whether it's putting on film for the first time, whether it's discovering Shabbos, the excitement could wear down. So the Alter Rebbe is sending this letter. I saw two different opinions when this letter was written. Some say it was written just 2 years later, or a year after they got there. Some say it was written much later in 1795. But whatever the case is, it's a long letter. We only have a small piece of it. We know the circumstances of what were going on in general from the longer letter. But this piece of the letter that's put in here by his sons, that when they compiled the Iggeres Hakodesh, has the main point he wants to share as far as instruction and guidance. As all the letters, each one focuses on another aspect of Yiddishkeit, of serving Hashem. And we saw somehow some of the letters focused on the impact of tzedakah. Somewhat happens to the world being elevated, the spirituality coming down, the breaking of all limitations, transformation of ourselves. Went through all different parts of the benefits of tzedakah. Here he goes into an idea which is very fascinating and probably an idea in general worth spending a lot of time on. So I'll spend some time this morning just touching the general concept. What is that? The idea of time. The whole idea of time is a very interesting concept. Let's take, for example, 7 days of the week. What in the physical world makes up this concept of 7 days in the week? Why isn't it 10 days in the week? Why is it 4 days in the week? So as Jewish people, we have a spiritual concept. Hashem created the world in 7 days. 6 days he worked. On the seventh day he rested. So we have a cycle of 7 days. But there's nothing in the world that sort of guides us why we should say, a week is 7 days. For an example, we could say we have a reason why a year is 365 days in the solar calendar, because that's the approximate time it takes, give or take a few hours, for the cycle of the sun. Whether you want to say the sun rose around the earth goes around the sun, whatever you want to say. The bottom line is it's a cycle of 365 days. Of course, in the spirit of Torah, we say the earth is a center, it's geocentric, and the sun goes around, rises and sets. But the bottom line is that we have a reason to say 365, or the Jewish calendar, both reality, but we follow the months. So it makes sense for us to say a year is of 12 cycles of the moon. So a month in our calendar is the birth of the moon till the moon once again disappears. So that's 29 and a half days approximately. So 12 of those make up approximately 354 days. Or if it's a leap year, 385 days, whatever it is. So the bottom line is there's a logic to some guiding force. But let's go back to the regular calendar, the Gregorian year. There's no logic to the months. There's no symmetry or connection to the months to anything except we took 365 days and divided into 12. But why one day is January 1st and one day is January 15th? Has nothing to do with anything because it's just one long cycle of the sun. So the months in the Gregorian calendar have nothing to do with anything. They're purely made up. Whereas the months in the Jewish calendar are following a certain symbol. So in January, February, March, there's no connection between the days of the month and the moon. Sometimes it can be a beginning of the month, end of the month. Sometimes it correlates, sometimes it doesn't. So we see that there's certain times that there's a logic why time has a certain format, and certain times it seems to be just made up. Let's take even in the 365-day cycle of the sun. Who determines when is the new year? I mean, January 1st become the new year. Somebody decided. I actually was once reading. I wanted to look it up. Didn't have a chance last night. I think there was a time that the April 1st used to be a new year. I think in the Gregorian calendar. I don't know if this is true. I read this somewhere years ago that the reason why April 1st became a day of a joke is because they once switched it from April 1st to January 1st, the new year, and people who still kept the old one was called April Fools. But they're still going with the old stuff. Is that true? I don't know. I read that once. But the bottom line is there is no significance to January 1st. They could have made February 1st be the beginning of the year, or July 1st, or July 15th. Why? There's no connection to anything. It's just a cycle of a cycle of a cycle. They started, arbitrarily one time 2,000 years ago and 2025 years ago, and that's it. So there's no concept to it. In other words, the way time seems to be, let's take the year, it's a cycle of a circle. It's going around and around, 365 days. Where's the start? Wherever you want it to be. Just make a starting point. It's like a racetrack. Where's the starting point? We'll make a line here. That's 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps. Once we make a line here, here's the start. So the idea of a starting point and what's happening each round is the same thing. It's going around and around and around. In Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, there's a whole different perspective on time. Time is not, first of all, just arbitrary. Time is significant. An hour is different than the next hour. Just like, let's take, the world is made up of 3 things: time, place, and people. No one's going to say, well, a square kilometer of land, it's all the same, just another square kilometer. No, this square kilometer is good for planting crops. This one isn't. This one's in the Negev. This one's in the north, where it's good. This one has rocks, meaning no one's going to say they're all the same. What do you mean it's a kilometer? But when it comes to an hour, it's just an hour. No, every hour is different. There's an hour of Shabbos, an hour of Yom Tov, an hour of night, an hour of day, an hour for Shabbos, an hour for Mincha. But even days that are similar, each one's unique. Like people also. You take a person. You have place, you have time, and people. That's the makeup of the world. Every person's unique. Every person's unique in the sense of, you might say, well, there's 5 people and 5 people. Yeah, it's very good. But they look different. They are different. Let's take for an example, even in a family. The first child, let's say like the first hour. Second child, the second hour. No one's going to say, they're the same. No. The first child has one personality and character. The second one is his. So every hour, we know when the Alter Rebbe was in prison, he knew what time it was. They try and mix him up and say it's like the morning, it's the night. He'd tell them exactly what time it is. And they're like, how do you know? He's like, what do you mean? Times are different. The formations of God's name as it comes into each hour is different. How do I know it's different? It's like, I'm feeling something. It feels like an orange. This feels like a piece of wood. How do you know? Because one's an orange, one piece of wood. I can feel the difference. Time is different. We don't see it because we live on a surface reality. We only see the surface. And to us, every hour looks the same. Some people get into a mode. You can feel Rosh Hashanah feels different. What do you mean? It's just another day. It's Tuesday. No, it's Rosh Hashanah. I feel different. I get up Shabbos morning. It's different. How is it different? There's another day of the week. It's different. It's when you become sensitive and you come in tune with it, Friday night feels different than Monday night. So, but in general, you won't see that. Not just that, there's no such a thing as a duplicate hour, which means that an hour comes into the world. You cannot say, you know what? I wasted this hour. I'll make it up tomorrow. No, tomorrow's a different hour. It's like an orange. I threw out this orange. I didn't use it. Oh, I'll make it up. No, that's a different. It's not the same. So what we want to establish right now is that time is completely unique, and every minute, every hour, every day is different. The question is, how does that work? If the days work if the years work in a cycle in the Jewish calendar, it's a cycle and a cycle and a cycle. The answer is, and it's a very fascinating thing, it's only a cycle if you don't know what time is. But once you know what time is, it's a whole different year. Last year and this year, the Rebbe taught us that was Shnas Mashiach, Shnas Geula, Shnas, this. Every year is a different year, different experience, different meaning. It's a whole different experience. And therefore, it's not a cycle. Every year actually is going higher and higher. So in other words, the first year is like this. The second year is not just a circle, it's actually like a spiral. It's going another link up, more up, more up. So time is not a circle. Time, to be more honest, is a spiral. That means where I was before, I'm not doing that again. It's like you do that, I'm up a different place now, a different place now, a different place now. This concept, this perspective changes our whole way we see time, and changes and addresses a very interesting question that's come up in many different places, and we're going to address it in Tanya today. What is that? There's an expression that says about Eretz Yisrael, such a special place. It says, Eini Hashem lekecha ba, the eyes of Hashem are there, Mereshis Hashanah, from the beginning of the year, but Achshon to the end of the year. Sounds like a very nice statement. Says the Alter Rebbe in this chapter, it doesn't make sense. It should be, the eyes of Hashem are there always. You know why? Because the end of the year comes, you're back on the next circle. Why are you saying eyes of Hashem are beginning to the end? It should be the eyes of Hashem are there all the time. And the answer is because the beginning and the end are 2 different years, 2 different times. If it was a flat, one-dimensional circle, then you're right. It's flat and it's going over and over. You say Hashem is always there. Hashem's eyes are always there. But the beginning of the year means in this cycle, in this experience, he's there. And here he's there, and here he's there. As you're going higher and higher in the service and the journey of time. Just like you can say Hashem's eyes are in Mexico, Hashem's eyes are watching over Israel, Hashem's eyes are watching over New Zealand. It's all different places. You don't just say that it's everywhere because each place is different. Every place is unique. You could say Hashem is there forever. That you could say, but it's not being honest because saying forever is making it sound like when it's not all the same. Every year is different. Every experience that we see ourselves. The protection we need today in 2025, or let's be in the year Tafshin Pei Vav, is different than the protection we needed in Tafshin Pei Gimel. The world is different. Times have changed. So this is a very important perspective. So when we're talking about time has to be seen as a unique experience that happens one after another, not over and over again. They sound very similar, but they're different. It's one after another, different experiences. And the way I once pictured it, understood it, was the picture, each minute in time, like a truck pulling in, waiting to be loaded with, let's say, produce, or whatever you're doing, loading up, and then pulling out. When that truck pulls out, it left empty, or it left full. But the next truck pulling in is a different truck. The different trucks, every hour is a new experience. Every minute is a new experience. And you can't make up this minute, that truck left empty. That hour left empty, is never coming back. You can't get it again. There's a famous expression, the Rebbe quoted it once. I heard it once. I've quoted it many times. It says, it's a quote from the Gemara. It says that money is replaceable, time is not. Yet people worry about losing money, but not losing time. Time is not replaceable. It's also, there's a story about this guy coming in for Iggeres. The Rebbe asked him why he doesn't wear tefillin and daven. He says, Rabbi, I don't have time. Time is money. I don't have time. The Rebbe said, no. I don't know the exact expression, but the Rebbe said, time is life. Life is made up of hundreds of minutes, thousands of minutes, hopefully millions of minutes. And that's life. So what we want to take in this chapter is the idea of time. Now what happens in time is sometimes I'm more inspiring and sometimes I'm less. And this is really where we're going to go with this chapter. So let's take it away. Chapter, we're on page Kuf Chaf, equal to page 239, to letter number 14. Okay. The Alter Rebbe is writing this letter. Time has gone by. People have been starting off pushing themselves and exerting themselves to support the Jews, the Chassidim that went to Eretz Yisrael. Again, it was Avram Kalisk, Menachem Ed Levitebsk, and the families. And he says, I want to awaken the love, Hayeshena, which was the original, meaning the old love, the original feeling you had. One of the metaphors that we use about, the Beis Hamikdash is that it says that the bread that they baked stayed fresh. You get brownies, you get cookies, you get challah, everything out of the oven. It is a certain beautiful freshness that's there the first time it comes out. 2, 3, 4 hours later, a day later, it's not the same thing. And they say that's the blessing of the bread, stay that freshness. Then what you had that first moment out of the oven, stayed that way the entire, sometimes it took 10 days till you actually ate the challah, sometimes a week. So it's amazing how it stayed that first same feeling. And the bracha you give people is that in your marriage and relationships and things, you shouldn't lose that first. People make jokes. I'm married 20 years. The beautiful thing, or 70 years, 60 years, whatever. So the if you could have that feeling you felt the first day, to have it 40 years later, that's a blessing. Alter Rebbe says that feeling. Remember that feeling you had the day I wrote you the letter. The day I sent out. We sent out. They went to Israel. The boats left, and we all went, and we all were excited, and we said they wanted to Israel, and we took their risks. I want to get that feeling back. The chibas Eretz Hakodesh and that love to Eretz Yisrael. See, it wasn't just a matter of the Yidden that were there. It was a combination of the Yidden that were there in Eretz Yisrael. It was Chassidim that went, and it was a very big serious nefesh to go, even though it was very difficult to live in Europe at the time. Very difficult. He said, I want to bring back that love. It should burn like a flaming fire. Mikerev ish, from inside each person. V'leiv amuk, and with deep in their heart, that feeling should come back again. That good love that you had to the experience that the Jews left and you supported them, bring that back. Ki'ilu hayei mamish, as if today was a day nosna Hashem ruchei aleinu, as if Hashem gave His Spirit to us. Meaning Hashem put inside of each of us a spirit, a fire, and this fire and this spirit is ruach nediva. We have inside of us the ability to be generous. There's a certain feeling we had of generosity we felt that day. Remember that day everyone left? Hashem put in our hearts a generosity. We all skipped breakfast and lunch and supper that day. We took the money and sent it to Israel. Bring back that feeling. That a person should be able to donate, to give donations. With your full extent of your hand. LaHashem biyad meleya rechava, with a full hand and a broad hand. And if you look at these two words, meleya could be the quantity, and rechava could be the quality. Beribui acharibui, more and more. And he's saying something phenomenal here. I'm not saying to give, he said, the same as last year. I'm saying to give more than last year. I remember when I was volunteering for the Federation one year, they told me when you call up someone to ask for a donation, don't ask if they want to give a donation. You ask them, do you want to make an increase or the same thing? You know, the choices I moved over. Do you want to make an increase on last year, or you want to keep it the same donation? So the Alter Rebbe was saying, I'm not just saying that you have to come and have that same feeling. Remember, we're going to go back in a minute and explain the whole idea of a spiral. If last year this was enough, then this year's got to be more. It's always got to be more. You can't be satisfied with last year's successes. So you require to give more and more and more. Midi shana b'shana, to go higher and higher. And he says an expression here, kemidas kodesh elyon, like the holiness of above. What's that talking about? Kodesh elyon is code, or meaning chachma ilah. Chachma is the source that we're talking about in the world. Whenever we have a generic talking about levels, Chachma, Bina, Malchus, in general, default discussion is Atzilus. So talking about here the Chachma of Atzilus, that level of resource that's there, that level of infinite, giving, Kodesh Elyon refers to that. Also the word Kodesh, we know there's the word Kiddush, there's Kedusha, there's the word Hakodesh, Kedushin. All those are sub words of the core root word, the root word. That's where shirish. The shirish of all these words are kodesh. No vav, just kodesh, holy. That is the ultimate sanctity from above. Kodesh elyon hameir le'eretz hakodesh. That gives light to the holy land. In other words, why is Eretz Hakodesh? Because it's sustained by kodesh elyon. That means Eretz Yisrael, the land of Eretz Yisrael, and we're going to see what it means. Not just physical Eretz Yisrael, it means also the spiritual one in a moment. But Kodesh Elyon, the source of Kedusha, the source of holiness, of Chachma, is infusing a certain place which becomes called Eretz HaKodesh. Why is it called Eretz HaKodesh? Because the land of Kedusha, the land where Chachma is bestowing its presence. In other words, why is Ma'aretz HaMachpelah called the cave of Machpelah? So usually we talk about, everyone usually says that the reason is because it was a double cave. The Rebbe has a fascinating insight. It was last week's Parsha. Unbelievable sikha. We learned it one Shabbos morning here, that actually there's a whole other reason. According to some opinions, a whole other reason this Rebbe talks about. On that property, there was a house that was unique from all homes. In those days, all homes were built one story. Homes were one story tall. On that property, there was a house that was 2 stories tall. It was so unique that the land was called the cave of the double. Not that the cave was double. It was a cave of the. That's why it's called. You see many comments called Stei Machpelah. The Rebbe points it out. It's called the field of Machpelah. Why the field? because that had the house that was double. Nowhere did you see a double house. Everyone called it the double field, the house that was the field with a double. So meaning once you have something new on that property that adds to a dimension, that's what the whole property is called. The property, the cave, everything was called the machpelah, all because of the house that was a 2-story house that was unique from any other house that you saw in those days. Who built a 2-story house back then? It would just be mud smushing on each other. They didn't have framework.
So why are they saying that there are two, like where they are buried and above that?
Yeah, so there's a cave within a cave. The general thing is there's a cave within a cave. That's the double. That's true. It's also double. But the name that it was famously called Machpelah was not. Sometimes you can have 2 reasons why you call it. But the famous reason was not because of the cave was double. The cave was double. That's true. And that's according to some opinions why it was called. The Rebbe says the real thing is that the field was famous because of the double house. So yes, there was a double cave. It was true. There was also double couples. Every couple was there doubled. But also there was a house that made this field unique from all of the fields. That's why you find that very often the Chumash, it's called Sdei HaMachpelah, not just the cave of Machpelah. Okay. So Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz HaKodesh. Why? Because that's where the Kodesh is. It becomes the land of Kodesh. Okay. HaMeschadesh u'Misrabe, it's read, like I knew they said in quantity, in quality, u'Misrabe in quantity, Tamid, constantly, it's constantly being increased. In other words, just like Eretz Yisrael, meaning you can't be satisfied. One of the reasons they wanted to cut down, at that point it says they were minimizing the investment in Eretz Yisrael, was also, they say that Mendel of Vitebsk's son, I think his name was Moshe, I was trying to figure out which son it was, passed away. And he had passed away already also. And they figured, okay, he had passed away, his son passed away, and it's okay, it's not the same generation. The requirements, they don't need our money. It's the next generation. And that's why some people feel it was a letter was written later in 95, not in 77. But the bottom line is that people were becoming weaker. The Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe was telling them, it's the land of Eretz Yisrael. We don't get weaker, we get stronger. More and more and more each year. Kedechsiv, and here's the famous verse we started talking about before. Like it says, Tamid Eini Hashem Alekechaba. Eternally or constantly, the eyes of Hashem are there. Maybe Reishis Hashana from the beginning of the year, at Achras Shana till the end of the year. That's the statement. Now comes the Alter Rebbe and he says, 1 second, but I have a question on this. And obviously he's saying the question because he wants to give an answer. It's not like he has a question, doesn't know the answer to. He says, seemingly, that's the better way to say it. Seemingly, there's a question. The high v'ed v'ad acheres chulu. This that we say until the end of the year, a movement seemingly is not understood. Seemingly, as soon as 1 year finishes, the next year starts. If it's a circle, you come to the end, it starts again. So why is it called ad achashan, the beginning to the end? It should be, he says, look what he says, just say, Hashem's eyes are there forever. Why does it say from the beginning to the end when it seemingly would have been better to say just all the time? Around and around the circle of time, Hashem's always there. And we know the answer already, but we're going to say it inside now.
Ask the question.
Yeah.
So this is 1700, and he writes that to simple Hasidim. How did they understand all this?
So it's a good question. So first of all, it's very possible that they went to the leading Hasid of their town, and they said, "What's the Alter Rebbe telling us here? Does anyone understand it?" And they gave the whole shir on it, the same way we know it. All the shirim that we know in Tanya today, the original shir giver of Tanya was a famous mashpia known as Shmuel Greinem Esterman. He was the mashpia, also known as Shmuel, or known as Greinem, just they call him Greinem. So he was the original Tanya giver, shir. And he explained Tanya. Since then, you had, of course, Rabbi Elkan who expounded, and many teachers who expounded and explained Tanya. But until then, I don't know how much people understood Tanya on their own who had taught it. I mean, until, like I said, was it 100 years ago? He gave this shiurim, probably 100 years ago. So until then, I don't know how much they understood of the letters, the depth of it. If they stood the simple level, some people understood more. But also, you remember that the simple people back then were brilliant. Many of them. We today we like to eat cheesecake and have coffee. They didn't have cheesecake and coffee. They were for spiritual people. They were.
But still, you're teaching like very deep things. It's not simple letter. Guys, we have to collect money. Let's do it.
Right. Right.
It's
so
like
right.
so deep, and you go into Atzilus, and you go into all this explanation.
Right. So first of all, so we know it because we learned Shiurim from the previous authors. I'm assuming at that time there were some who didn't understand all of it, and there was the Mashpiyim, the rabbis, the tzaddikim. They had those days again a lot of people that don't exist today. People that were like Rabbi Moshe Rapoport, like Pinchas Karitzer and Isaac Hummel. You had people that themselves were masters of masters. Again, the Alter Rebbe's particular interest, by the way, in this group is because Rabbi Mendel of Vitebsk, he accepted him as a Rebbe after the Maggid, even though eventually he became the Rebbe himself. But there was a short time that he said, it's not me, it's him. He took him as the Rebbe. And then he understood that he has to become the Rebbe himself, as the stories went. But there were great people at those time who understood the depth, probably a lot more than we understand, because again, we're just scratching the surface. Someone who's like who has a knowledge of all the sources sees the multi-dimensional story of this letter. But again, these letters were not meant to be just fundraising letters. Anyone could have wrote it. You could have just said, give tzedakah. The Alter Rebbe uses an opportunity to reveal teachings of Chassidus, and this is why the sons, when they composed the Tanya, these additional parts of the Tanya, they took out a lot of the letter that seemed to be just a technical part, like they give money, and they focus on the part that give us insight into what's a year, what's time, what's tzedakah, what's our service to Hashem, etc. But you're right; these aren't the basic funny letters you get. Charity campaign, please give money. That's the side story. The main thing is the Alter Rebbe was off the charts, deep.
So these people that explained those letters, they must have been the Alter Rebbe's students, that they knew what the Alter Rebbe means by saying this.
Right. Some knew what they meant. Some things is from other Rabbeim who taught it, and they expounded upon it. Some Tzedek had B'Yorim. Again, the like the Chumash. You take the Chumash for an example, and it seems to be very simple. And then you start seeing what the Mefarshim say, and what the Orach Chaim says, and the Kli Yakar says, and Even Ezra says, and the Ramban. It's like, how do they know all this stuff? The Chumash just says, basics. A lot of it was handed down teacher to student, where they knew what
also had Ruach HaKodesh.
And they had Ruach HaKodesh, yeah. Until the Marsha, it says that many of them had Ruach HaKodesh, knowing what's right to get the right message. But you're right; it is very deep stuff. We're lucky that we have some insights from previous scholars, but there are some people that also spend a lot of time, and it's like Amora. You learn it, you start understanding deep stuff that you suddenly, based on a mimer I learned, based on a thing, based on a teaching, and you start picking up. But for us, the only way we know it, I know myself, is listening to other shiurim and reading svarim where it's explained. And today there's a lot of svarim Tanya. Happens to be for the last two sections, Iggeres Hakodesh and Kudas Achron, there's much less. There's much less material out there than we had the first three sections. Lakuti Amarim, Shayich Damun Iggeres Hatshuva, a lot of books and material. As we're going further and further into the end, there's less and less material. So it takes more time to prepare and to know it. So in any case, okay, just to finish off this part here. So that's the question. And how does he answer it? And this is now as you go into, if tomorrow thought it was deep until now, it's going to leap here. Inyan Yuvan. To understand this, Al Pi Masha Kasav, it says Hashem bechachma yasad aretz. Hashem with chachma created earth. Now, when you say eretz in general, it means malchus. In general, eretz is the lowest of, you go down in different levels. Eretz is the bottom. That they say come down to earth. Eretz. Eretz also means the bottom of a process. So if you have chachma and bina and das and chesed, gvura, tiferes, so you have, now we're going to focus mainly on the middays, which is chesed, gvura, tiferes. That is the process that leads to the earth. So therefore, the 6 middays of chesed, gvura, tiferes, netzach, hod, and yisaid is called Zayin Aleph, which is short for Za'er Anpin, small face. There's something called long face, that's in Keser, but small face is how we call the 6 middays, Za'er Anpin. That's the male or the masculine of the middays. These are the 6 providers they give. Malchus is the receiver. Malchus is known as the receiver of all the middays, and therefore, in everything we do, we talk about masculine and feminine. The first 6 are called masculine, which are Zah, the 6 middays, and the feminine is Malchus. Women are called Malchus. Now, Malchus does not receive for itself. It receives to give to others. Malchus is not a receiver, it is collectors. Malchus receives, so we know in the process in creating a child, the male is supposed to give, the female is supposed to receive, and then she's supposed to produce from that the next level, which would be, let's say, we're talking about Atzilus, after all the levels in the midas of Atzilus give to Malchus, the lowest, the earth, then the earth, the Malchus of Atzilus, has to now produce for Yitzira, the next world. So what was Malchus of Atzilus now becomes Chachma of Yitzira, because the worlds are Atzilus. Sorry, I mean Bria. You have Atzilus, Beria, Yitzira, Asiya, the four main worlds. So the bottom of Atzilus, which is Malchus, now becomes the top of Bria. So this meaning Malchus is the receiver, but it's not to receive for itself, it's to receive to give. For an example, we can call the sun and the moon also masculine and feminine. The sun gives light, the moon is a receiver, but the moon's job is not to reflect it onto earth. So in the darkest time of the day, which is nighttime, we don't have the relationship with the sun, relationships with the moon. Now the light of the moon doesn't come from the moon. The light comes from the sun. But the moon that receives this light now gives it over and transfers that to the people. So Eretz represents that level of Malchus. That's important. She yisoid ha'eretz halyena. That means with the yisoid, the foundation of the highest of the high Eretz, meaning Malchus, which Malchus of Atzilus, he begins from Malik Alman. It becomes what's called Malik Alman. So we talk about the level of God that is coming to fill our world. Hashem relates to the world in two ways. One is called, and it's a little technical, but we'll start again this next week. One is called Seviv. Seviv means Hashem gives off light and doesn't take into consideration is the world able to receive it. As an example would be, Einstein's giving a class. He's not paying attention if the participants are 6-year-olds or college students and professors. He's talking. It's above everyone's head. But he's talking, and the benefit is it's absolute pure wisdom coming of Einstein's brilliance. It's the quality. The flaw is no one has any idea what he's talking about. No one has any idea. But it's brilliant. So on the other hand, Mali means I'm modifying myself for the receiver, which means you're not getting the full brilliance of Einstein. So he's talking to 6-year-olds. He is dumbing it down to a 6-year-old level or to a college professor level. So the downside is they're not getting the original. It's a watered down version. The upside is they walk away saying, oh, that was fascinating. I understood it. So you're going to have one of the two. Seviv means it's above me and it's overcomes me. I can't relate to it, but it's here. I'm hearing it. I hear every word you said. I have no idea what you're talking about. And Mali is, I hear everything. I understand it. I relate to it. I receive it. But I know this is not the original. This is the Moshe version, the simple version. So he says that's the idea of Eretz. Eretz is the Mamali Kalman. Vatachtoina, and where is the lower Eretz? Eretz Hakodesh. So you have in the reality, the realm of existence, you have Eretz Alyona, the higher Ezra. We're calling it Eretz. When we say Eretz plain, referring to Israel, but even though it could mean also everything, but Eretz, the Eretz of above, which is called Malchus, the bottom of Atzilus, and the Eretz of below, which is Eretz Yisrael. And just like the Malchus of Atzilus, the Eretz above, the Holy Land above, is a receiver, but it takes that light and spreads it to the next level. Eventually, it comes down to our world. The same thing, Eretz Hakodesh is a receiver of all light, of holiness, of sustenance, and from Israel goes out the sustenance to the rest of the world. So where does the rest of the world get their sustenance? From Israel, from Eretz Hakodesh. We are the Malchus, we are the receiver of God's blessing here, and we produce it to everywhere else. It's funny that Tamar just left. The technical term we use for all this is Chayfetz. Eretz Chayfetz, the land of desire. So he begins Eretz Chayfetz. It's talking about the land of Chayfetz, which is a land of desire, referring to Eretz Yisrael. Hamukuven is connected mamish. It doesn't mean geographically or spatially that it's juxtaposed, but it means it's directly connected or facing each other in the spiritual concept. It means that the Eretz Yisrael is a direct receiver from the higher Israel. We say in general there's a higher kingdom and a lower kingdom. There's a higher temple and a lower temple. There's a higher Israel and a lower Israel. The higher Israel is the bottom of Atzilus. Lower Israel is the Holy Land, Eretz Yisrael. Let's go to a couple lines, then we'll break and start from this answer again next week. V'nikra al Shema Eretz Achayim, and therefore it's called by its name Eretz Achayim. Israel has a name Eretz Achayim, the land of life. Why? It's the source of life to all over the world. Where does Argentina get its life from? Israel. If people would know how much they should rely on Israel for blessings, instead of attacking it, they would protect it. But they're goofballs, and people attack their parents, people attack their suppliers. So Where does this all come from? Everything starts off in the top of Atzilus. Even before that, also in this discussion, it starts off in the top of Atzilus. We said there's 10 spheres, just like our soul has 10 powers. Chachma, Bina, Das, the intellectual ones, and then Chesed, Gvur, Teferes, Netzach, Yesod, which are the emotional, and then Malchus, the receiver. Same thing is true within Atzilus itself. Chachma is that first initial source. That's when let's take it in our minds. What's Chachma? Ideas, flashing. There's an endless resource. How many times can a spark come out of a stone? As many times as you strike it. There's an infinite amount of times that you can get ideas and inspiration, and that comes in the deepest. And in that nucleus idea, it carries so much information. It's like a seed from a child. In that nucleus, that DNA carries all the information there until it's expounded. You can't see it within the bina, etc. That chachma is a source, and that comes down and infuses Eretz above, the holy spiritual Eretz Yisrael, and eventually it gives life force to the Eretz Yisrael down here, and from there it goes down and spreads to the whole world. Why is this important here? As we'll see next week, we're going to talk about how does time start? Time starts from Rosh Hashanah. For us, for human beings. Time starts before other people before that. But for human beings, are Rosh Hashanah. How did Rosh Hashanah start? That God created man. Man was one. And then God did something called the Nisira. He split man into two. Adam and Eve came apart. One part was masculine, one part is feminine. And the masculine's job is to give to the feminine. As a year comes to an end, you're sort of fading, and then we start again. So the new surge every year, Rosh Hashanah, is the resurgence of this relationship between the spheros, or the Zah, or the masculine, feeding to the feminine, and that's representative of Hashem's masculine giving to the world, to the feminine. And we're going to see that every year there's a greater oomph and a greater push of this flow from the man half to the woman half, from the masculine to the feminine, from the chachma to the malchus. And this is what Rosh Hashanah is going to be. We'll see a new surge. And this is how the Alter Rebbe wants to get to eventually. And this is why this is basically the concept. Why we look back, we should be even more pumped in the first year. Now a year went by, and now if this year was amazing, imagine with a new surge of the energy and the time. This time is a quality time that's different. This chunk of time is a whole new level of power, like Shabbos compared to weekday. So imagine now how much more you have to be fired up to give tzedakah, etc., etc. And that's where we're going with this discussion. Okay, we'll stop here.